context about what occurred with working with Dr. Sullivan and the spike in COVID cases here in Brookfield and certainly in Connecticut, and just build a little context so people understand what's going on. And so the first thing I want to do is express my appreciation to our faculty and staff and students, the board and the families, our administration, for all the support during this most difficult time. There's nothing more that we want for all of our students here in Brookfield, and that is for us to have all of the students back in school and frankly how things used to be. This has been an awful experience for almost all of us, and we know the toll it takes on families, staff, and students. The administration, faculty, and I live with the fallout and extreme challenges and constraints placed upon us from COVID every day in our roles as school teachers and school leaders. We received emails from parents today questioning the decision to move to remote learning, and other emails thanking the district for the decision to close school. As far as I know, I have been able to respond to every single one of those today. We need to make things crystal clear for those who might think the closing of our schools was a quick decision and maybe even an overreaction. No decision in the school district, including the strong recommendation from Dr. Sullivan that we should close the schools, is made in haste, is knee-jerk, or considered in a vacuum. In this case, health data, a stream of new positive cases, and the multitude of emerging needs to quarantine students and staff were all taken under consideration. We also must consider the CDC, Department of Public Health, and Connecticut State Department of Education requirements that we must live within as we run our public schools. As leaders, we do not have the luxury of inaction or do-overs when it comes to the safety of our students and staff. In Brookfield, we have approximately 2,600 students and their families to consider, along with 416 employees and their families to consider when making such decisions. None of this is taken lightly. So the question really is, why change to a full closure in late afternoon on Tuesday, when earlier in the morning everything appeared under control? Simply put, in the morning, we only knew about our isolated cases in which we could target populations and quarantine. By yesterday afternoons, things were not under control. Dr. Sullivan was trying to figure out what was going on. After the 2 cases we reported to the entire community in the morning, more primary contacts began to report symptoms to their administrators and other cases within families. These cases were being reported to school nurses. Dr. Sullivan took into consideration the significant uptick in positive cases in student and faculty and staff, and in relatives of students and faculty here in Brookfield, and also with employees that actually live out of town. More primary contacts to exposures continued to be reported to school officials across the district as the afternoon wore on. As Dr. Sullivan learned of these matters, and with his greater perspective of state, regional, and town data, he recommended that we close the schools yesterday afternoon. This was hours after the information we learned of earlier that morning. The case positivity rate today in Brookfield is climbing to almost 10% here in town, and 3% in Connecticut right now, which is the highest it's been since June. Hospitalizations continue to be up, and mortality is now moving up. And Dr. Sullivan is obviously very concerned about this, along with our neighboring districts in this area of Western Connecticut. We learned today that there may be as many as 14 school-related cases and an additional 8 to 10 cases in town that Dr. Sullivan actually knows about. That's not the cases that are delayed in getting reported to him. As a result, the school district made the decision to transition to remote learning for a period of 14 days, the normal quarantine period. Based on Dr. Sullivan's recommendation, we did this. The decision was quite rational and in the best interest of protecting the students and their families, faculty and staff and their families, and all of Brookfield. We certainly recognize the emotional stress that decisions such as these create. We, as administration, have children and families as well who are enduring the same pandemic as everyone else. We must rely on the science of disease transmission and the safety of our precious children, families, and our educators. And I wanted to share that because it's very important to get the facts out there and the decision-making process, and the fact that we listen to the public health experts as part of that, a big part of that process. And we care deeply about our families when they're in school and when they're not in school, and of course our students and staff.